My name is Victoria James, and I'm the Director of Professional Learning at MindSpark Learning. I've left my email on this slide, and we'll show it again towards the end. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions, would like to follow up, or need clarification. I would love to hear from you all. If you can't hear us, go navigate to the Zoom toolbar, far left-hand side where the microphone is, and click that little up arrow to mute or unmute yourself. And then step 2 is to select your built-in output or computer speakers. So I know we're all maybe experts in Zoom now, but if you are having trouble hearing us, follow these steps. If you need help, support is in the chat. My fantastic colleague Cassie is joining us today. Please message her directly if you are having issues with tech or have a specific question. She's here to help us. If you would like, this is totally optional, but if you would like to turn on your camera, it does sometimes help to feel that we are somewhat in the same room together when we can see everyone's faces. If you do have a bad internet connection, just leave it off. I also am wanting to very specifically say you can opt out of that as well. You know, a lot is going on in the world, and sometimes we just are zoomed out a bit, so that's fine as well. If you would like to share your thinking, please do unmute yourself. You can type into the chat if you have a question or would like Cassie to unmute you. Everybody just starts muted because we know there's background noise sometimes when people join, so we want to make sure we can hear everybody clearly. Okay. So MindSpark Learning is a nonprofit driven by the belief that the most impactful path to evolving education is through folks like us, educators. I want to open this spotlight snippet with the metaphor of the oxygen mask. So as you see on the screen, the directions are to place the oxygen mask on yourself before helping small children or others who may need your assistance. I think this is the perfect metaphor when talking about a burnout with educators, because we are working, you know, extremely hard, and were before all this happened, and more so now. We want to be there for our students. You know, I know some of you guys are answering student emails at 10 o'clock at night, and students might be texting you at like 1 in the morning with questions or wanting help with something. We really want to be there for our students, but we have to be there for ourselves first. We've got to invest in our own social, emotional health and well-being before we can support anybody else's, right? So this is a good image to remind us of that truth. So here is our agenda for today. We are going to do a fair amount of content pieces, but also activities that you can take back to your schools and to your classrooms that I have done in the past and found to be quick, easy, low cost, low tech, but really impactful. So unconditional positive regard. This is a term that was coined by the humanistic psychologist Carl Rogers, and it is in relation to patient-centered therapy. So you can boil it down to this: I care about you, you have value, you don't have to do anything to prove it to me, and nothing's going to change my mind. And I think it's really powerful to sort of preface our work with this idea in mind, because when we work with our students and our families, it can be really tough work. We all know that. There are some situations that are extremely sensitive or difficult or complex. Some of our students have experienced traumatic events that are largely untreated, and we don't, you know, we know not to take anything personal. That said, we know that everybody in a school community matters, and that everybody's coming to, you know, our classrooms with different lived experiences. So we want to be mindful of that. And I just think unconditional positive regard is a great way to frame the work that we do in our schools with our kids. So what is burnout? I think it's important that we can, you know, begin to define it if we are going to understand it, right? So burnout is chronic psychosocial stress. The term was coined in 1974 by Herbert Freudenberger, and it can cause an emotional crisis. in a person's sense of professional competency. So while most countries don't recognize burnout as an official medical condition, it is important to know that Sweden did recognize it as a legitimate diagnosis in 2003. So typical symptoms include chronic ongoing stress, which can manifest in severe fatigue, anxiety, irritability, difficulty concentrating, and other cognitive struggles. I know I've experienced burnout in my career and in a classroom when I was teaching, and I was also doing another role that was almost a full-time role in addition to my classes, and it was just brutal. I think we sometimes just want to put our heads down and just get the work done, and we're so invested in our students, and we neglect our own needs, which can lead to burnout. And if we go back to that oxygen mask example, we can't help anybody else until we help ourselves. So this is a tool that was developed by a psychologist, and it is called the stress curve. So if you notice, there's the performance axis and the stress level axis. You can take a moment to review this image. And some of you all might be like, oh yeah, I feel I'm in the orange, or yesterday I was definitely, you know, in the yellow, approaching orange, or maybe even the red. Maybe some of the lucky ones, you all are in the green. Regardless, I think this is a good tool to kind of do a quick self-assessment, right? If we are, you know, over time, day after day, feeling really tired, fatigued, feeling exhausted, and then we start to maybe notice there's this resentment or anxiety or anger towards the work that we're doing, I think this is a great tool to just kind of take stock of where we are and ask ourselves, is this reoccurring? Are these feelings happening pretty regularly? Or, you know, is this really just a one-off and I need to just close my computer, you know, get to bed early, take care of myself, and tomorrow will be better. So you can use this tool. Now, stress versus burnout. This is an important distinction. Stress is characterized by overengagement. So there's typical signs are a loss of energy. It can lead to anxiety disorders and produces urgency and hyperactivity. Whereas burnout can really look like a loss of motivation. It potentially can lead to depression. And the primary damage is emotional. Now, this is by no means a comprehensive image, but it does help us distinguish kind of what are the differences, some of the key differences between stress and burnout. All right, so this is a tweet from an educator in New Jersey named Nicholas Ferroni that he sent out in April. And I think it is really important to remember and remind ourselves all of the things that we do in addition to teaching students, right? So he shares that, you know, now people know that teachers in schools feed students, care for students, buy school supplies, inspire students, nurture them, mentor them, and teach them. We all know this. This is not news to us, but when we talk about investing in our own social emotional health and well-being and our own mental health in order to prevent burnout, this, when you see it listed out like this, it reminds us, okay, we do so much for our kids every single day. We can't pour from an empty cup, right? If we're gonna do all the things Nicholas Ferroni just mentioned in his tweet, we have to make sure that we are in a good place to do so. And I don't think you can even begin to do any of those bullet pointed items that he mentioned unless we take care of ourselves first. So this is one of our first tools that I'm excited to share with you called the Mood Meter. And this is developed at Yale's Center for Emotional Intelligence, and it is part of their systemic social emotional learning, or SEL, program called Ruler. So what they do is they use this in schools and classrooms, and they help students start to consider and reflect on their emotions. Some of you all maybe have seen this tool before. I love it. But as you see, there's the energy axis and the pleasantness axis. And if you were to plot how you're currently feeling at this moment on this graph, which color would you categorize that feeling in? And I don't want to overwhelm you all with instructions. So if you were just going to assign a color to how you're currently feeling, go ahead when you're ready, type that into the chat. Just the color. And if you are feeling a spectrum of emotions, like many of us are, a rainbow, you can say that, that is fine. If you're feeling purple or orange, please type that in the chat as well. Let's see. Okay. See some yellows, some greens. Okay, a blue-green, yeah, that's totally fine. Awesome, thank you. Okay, see a blue, a green, wonderful. Thank you all for sharing in that. I've seen teachers use this tool in classrooms where they have a bucket of different color rubber bands at the door, and a student walks in, you know, they don't even have to verbalize how they're feeling that day. They just select the color rubber band that corresponds with how they're feeling on the mood meter, and they begin their work. I've seen that's more elementary, middle school classrooms. I've seen high school teachers use it in a way where if they always have colored pencils or markers in the middle of the tables, a student maybe just takes a yellow or red or green or blue and like makes a little circle at the top of their paper. So as the teacher's walking by, he or she can do a quick check. Because I think some of our students, and you all are well aware of this, some of our students really struggle to verbalize their emotions and how they're feeling. It's difficult. So sometimes they're much more willing to express themselves in a different way. And the mood meter is a great tool in which to do that. So thank you all. All right, regardless of how you're feeling, I do want to touch on this fact that, you know, you can be doing all of the things, right? You can be trying to get enough rest. You can try to eat healthy, express yourself in a positive, productive way, and work really hard, but you may still not be feeling great, and that is totally fine. It is okay to not be okay right now. And I think when we give ourselves permission to feel those feelings and our students the permission to feel what they're feeling, it is so empowering and validating. This is a quote from a high school counselor I saw the other day that I thought just spoke to this perfectly. She says, it's okay to not be okay. I mean, most of the world is not okay right now. And it's okay to grieve about what you're losing because it is tragic. We can be grateful for what we have, but also be sad for what we've lost, whether it's the school year, whether it's a family member, a colleague, a friend. We know that there's the ability to hold multiple feelings at the same time, right? I think norming this for our students can be really, really powerful as well. All right, so before we get into more tools, I just want to touch base and if we're kind of considering how to take care of ourselves to prevent burnout, here are the basics, right? We can just do a very quick self-assessment check in with ourselves to say, are our basic needs being met? Are we getting enough sleep? Are we drinking enough water? Do we have you know, a decent diet? I know I've been eating more chocolate than I normally do, and it makes me happy. So I need to make sure that I'm still getting, you know, my veggies and fruits and all that good stuff, right? Again, feel the feelings. I think the permission to feel, giving that to yourself and your students can really help everybody deal with this time in a more healthy way. Then, you know, make sure you're maintaining your connections with others. So if you haven't checked in with a good friend of yours or a family member in a while who you know always brings you joy, do so. Take the time that you need to continue to foster those connections. Everybody calls it social distancing, but it's really physical distancing, right? We can still remain socially connected. Another thing to consider is limiting media consumption. I know I've been checking the news and trying to keep tabs on what's happening at the federal level and the state level and the local level, and it can get very, very overwhelming. So limiting those consumption times to something that's more manageable, perhaps once a day. You read your headlines, you get your news, and then, you know, you don't check it again until 12 hours later or 24 hours later, if that's something that you know you can do. do it. And then last but not least, boundaries. As teachers, I'm not sure we're always good at this. You know, I would tell students, you can reach me between the hours of 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. If they texted me at 6, I was probably going to respond. If they emailed me at 7:30, I probably would get back to them that same night. But I think especially now, boundaries are so important, both professionally and personally. And setting and maintaining boundaries is a form of self-care. I heard this the other day and the light bulb went off, right? I think we can give ourselves the space and time to, you know, respond to a student's email, you know, and say, okay, I will get back to you within 24 hours and keep to that. Whatever your boundaries are, you decide them for yourself. Everybody's are different to an extent, but making sure that we kind of keep tabs on those and kind of, you know, stay true to them for ourselves can be really powerful and important. All right, so here is our second tool. This is called the hand tracing tool. This is developed by a social emotional learning organization based here in Denver called Asset Education. They are absolutely phenomenal. I would highly recommend you check out their website. They've got a lot of great tools and tips. But this tool is, like I said, is called the hand tracing tool. Very low tech, low cost as well. And what we are going to do, and I'm actually going to have us do it, is just if you hold your hand up, you see on the screen that there's instructions, right? If we start on the outside of our palm, the bottom, okay? What we do is on the rise, there we go. I want to make sure you guys can see. On the rise, we exhale, right? So what I want to do is just exhale, clear your lungs, and you're at the top of your pinky finger. This is where we pause. Each of the top of the fingers is where you pause. When you move down, you're inhaling, okay? So for starting here, we'll inhale. 1, 2, 3. We exhale on the upward. Pause, inhale, and then I'll count 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now exhale. You move to the top of the middle finger. Pause. Inhale. 1, 2, 3. Exhale. 1, 2, 3. Pause. Last one. Inhale. 1, 2, 3. Exhale. 1, 2, 3. Pause. Okay. So this tool can be really valuable if you know that, you know, your students might be stressed out, you're trying to begin your lesson or study session or check-in, what have you. If you can tell students are not feeling good, not being in a good headspace, you can use this tool with them, okay? I also think for yourself, I find this to be a helpful tool. And when we're talking about, you know, preventing educator burnout, simple practices like these, you know, getting in touch with your breath, taking a moment to pause, those are scientifically proven to reduce, you know, your stress and reduce your heart rate. So it gets you into a healthier kind of headspace. And just taking 5 minutes, sometimes we feel like we have no time in the day to take a break. Taking 5 minutes to do something like this, like the hand tracing tool, can help you, right, in the short term. And if you norm a practice like this, whatever works for you over time, building those into your day, 2 minutes here, 5 minutes there, what have you, those can over time have very positive impacts. Okay, so now we're going to switch gears a little bit and get into wellness. So true wellness means feeling calm, energized, and having the tools to get back there when you don't. And I love this example because it just speaks to the reality that, you know what, wellness is a journey, right? We have to work on it and invest in it every single day. Start from where you are. Nobody's an expert. It doesn't matter that you don't have a degree in psychiatry or haven't read 100 books on the subject. You're here, you're present, start from there. So I think when we talk about wellness, it's important to remember that there are very real barriers, both self-imposed and barriers, you know, from society that can impede our access to wellness. So if we're talking about it in the lens of burnout, right, it emerges over time. We know that emotional exhaustion and withdrawal from increased workload and institutional stress is most likely the cause of our burnout and is not trauma related. It's really, really important when we are working with our students or stakeholders. If you can get access to trauma-informed care training, I would highly, highly recommend it. We don't have time to get into that today, but I did want to just very briefly touch on that. So if you notice sort of this pathway, right, that's listed on the screen that, you know, typically, maybe it's starting in September, right? We started this enthusiasm level. We're so excited to see our kids. Can't wait for them to come in the door and look at our classroom decorations, get to know them. We're looking at our roster, wondering who these personalities are. But then we find ourselves feeling stuck, feeling overwhelmed, right? God, it's already October and I have, you know, like 10 million things to do, and Thanksgiving can't come soon enough, right? To then this third stage of frustration. If we feel that we don't have enough time in the day to get our work done and also invest in ourselves and take care of ourselves in our personal life and maintain our personal relationships, we can really start to feel that level of frustration and anger. And then finally apathy, where it's just like, I don't even care, right? They can just fill in their bubble sheets when they fill them in, and I just can't even deal with it. I am up to here. So it's important that we continuously check in with ourselves throughout the term, throughout the semester, throughout the school year, even throughout the day, and check in with ourselves, kind of make sure we are understanding where we're coming from and why we might be feeling certain feelings. I know we've all worked with students who've had difficult home lives, who come to our classrooms with some pretty big obstacles. Sometimes we can have compassion fatigue, right? I remember I've had students who shared certain things that had happened to them in the past, and it was really tough to hear, and I would sort of take it home with me, and I would just be thinking about it until, you know, until I went to bed. And we gotta kind of pause and do a case-by-case or kind of cumulative analysis, right? As much as we can maintain those barriers. Yes. I think even naming it and being mindful of compassion fatigue helps, right? That this is a thing, this exists. I've also heard of secondary trauma that is common in healthcare workers and educators. And I had never even heard of those concepts before, but it made perfect sense to me once I learned what those were. All right. So this is the wellness wheel. This is another tool you can use for yourself and potentially with your students. There are 8 dimensions of wellness, and they are listed on the screen here. So you see there's financial, occupational wellness, physical, academic, intellectual wellness, recreational, social, emotional, spiritual, and environmental. We don't have too much time to go through it today, but I have linked in the chat in just a moment. You'll get a copy of a PDF of this tool that you can review on your own time with corresponding instructions. I would encourage you to do this for yourself, and everybody's wellness wheel looks different. So here is mine. I filled it in using like the paint function. Everybody's, like I said, looks different, but you know, if I feel that I have a medium sense of financial wellness, because you know what, I just paid off my final cart payment, feeling good. I still have some student loans. I'm gonna rate myself in more or less top middle portion of the pie slice. If I you know, finished my master's degree last month and I'm feeling super energized and engaged, I might put here, you know, I'm at a 9 for my intellectual academic wellness. Everybody's is different. And like I said, you'll have this tool for yourself in the chat. You can play around with it. It's linked as a PDF. This is another tool that relates to that wellness wheel called the self-care equation. And this is also going to be put in the chat. You'll just get access to it as a view-only Word doc. and you can just make a copy for yourself. This is, again, those 8 dimensions of wellness, and what you can do, and what I've done for myself and students in the past, is looked at, okay, my overarching idea or goal for myself for emotional wellness is to practice gratitude. So I've written that next to number 1. What is a specific action that I can do to meet that big goal for my emotional wellness of practicing gratitude? I can send a thank you note to my colleagues that helped me out, what have you. And I think this is a great tool to use. We can all say we want to be more grateful, we want to practice gratitude. Give yourself a bit of an accountability measure and write in for that second space, what's a specific action you can do. Okay, so we are very much running short on time, and I so appreciate you all joining me today. I know this was very quick, but you do have some takeaway tools that you can use for yourselves to kind of help mitigate some of the stress and anxiety that we all feel. And I just am curious, as a connection circle, when you're ready, go ahead and type into the chat. Moving forward, name one thing that you want to commit to doing to investing in your personal wellness. Just one thing. What is it? And when you're ready, type it into the chat. Getting more exercise. Yes, that is really important. I would second that, Kathy. Yep. Spirituality, empathy, praying more. Yes. Love learning and watching Netflix. I hear you, Angela. Yes. Connecting with others, eating more fruits and veggies. Definitely, Elijah. Yes. Love, Miss Wahid, love that. Spend more time with nature. Yes, there is a healing power to nature that we sometimes forget about. Yep. Saying yes when I need to, saying no when I need to. Excellent. Yard work, better sleep. Fantastic. Good. Fantastic. Thank you all so much for sharing those. Whatever your commitment is, I would just encourage yourself, you know, when you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, think back to that one commitment. If you're like, I know I need to get a walk, I just need to stretch my legs, I need to go outside, then, you know, if you can in your day, in your schedule, do it, because we know that really helps us. All right. Final closing quote is from Maya Angelou. No matter what happens or how bad it seems today, life does go on and it will be better tomorrow. As difficult as that can seem right now, in America today, I think it is so important to kind of reflect on some of these really powerful thinkers and academics and leaders who have really gone through so much in their lives and are still able to find hope and positivity when they look to tomorrow. Somebody mentioned nature and their commitment, and I just did want to share with you very, very briefly. This is the Takisakura cherry tree, which is outside of Fukushima, Japan, that is over 1,000 years old. It has endured droughts, earthquakes, and even a nuclear disaster, and it is blooming again. And I find that to be such a powerful reminder and image that we have sources of strength, resilience to overcome obstacles and challenges more than we ever know. So I think this is a powerful story to share with you. All right, I know we are short on time, so I do thank you all today.